The glass shattered against the hardwood floor. A crystalline scream that sliced through the silence of our penthouse. Red wine bled across the oak, pooling around the jagged shards like a crime scene. My wife, Claire, stood frozen, her hands still outstretched, her emerald eyes wide with something I couldn't name. Shock, regret, or maybe defiance. "You're too sensitive, Mark," she'd said just moments before, her voice sharp as a blade. "Learn to take a joke." But this wasn't a joke. The text I'd seen on her phone, glowing in the dark of our bedroom last night, wasn't a punchline. "Meet me at the usual spot. Don't tell him." I stared at the crimson stain spreading across the floor, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. The air smelled of fermented grapes and betrayal, thick and suffocating. "Who is he, Claire?" My voice was low, trembling, each word a stone I had to force out. She didn't answer. She just looked at me, her lips parting slightly, as if she might speak but thought better of it. The silence was worse than any lie she could have spun. We'd been married 7 years, Claire and I. She was the spark to my steady flame. The one who could walk into a room and make every head turn. Effortless, magnetic, a corporate lawyer with a smile that could disarm a jury or a boardroom. I was the opposite. Mark Ellison, CEO of Ellison & Crane, a law firm I'd built from nothing, methodical and deliberate, the man who preferred contracts to charisma. She used to tease me about it, her laughter bright and teasing. "You're too serious, Mark. Loosen up." I'd smile, because her laughter was my anchor, the thing that kept me grounded in a world of billable hours and high-stakes deals. But lately, her laughter had been scarce, replaced by late nights at the office, cryptic phone calls, and a distance I couldn't bridge. Last night, I'd woken to the soft glow of her phone on the nightstand. She was asleep, her breathing steady, but the screen was alive, a notification pulsing like a heartbeat. I didn't mean to look, God, I swear I didn't. But the words were there, stark and undeniable. "Meet me at the usual spot. Don't tell him." The sender's name was blocked, just a string of numbers, but the message burned into my brain. I lay there until dawn, my mind spiraling, rationalizing. Maybe it was a client, a work thing, a misunderstanding. But my gut knew better. My gut screamed betrayal. Now, standing in the wreckage of our dining room, I watched Claire's face for a flicker of guilt. She crossed her arms, her silk blouse catching the light from the chandelier, and tilted her chin up. "You're blowing this out of proportion," she said, her voice steady but laced with something brittle. "It's nothing, Mark. A colleague. A work thing." "Then show me," I said, stepping closer, my shoes crunching on glass. "Show me the texts. Right now." My voice cracked, betraying the calm I was trying to hold on to. I hated how desperate I sounded, how small. She hesitated, just a fraction of a second, but it was enough. My stomach twisted. "I don't have to prove anything to you," she snapped, turning away, her heels clicking toward the kitchen. "This is ridiculous. You're paranoid." Paranoid. The word stung, a slap I felt in my bones. Maybe I was. Maybe I'd misread the late nights, the way she'd started locking her phone, the way her perfume lingered on her coat like it hadn't been washed in weeks. But then I remembered the way she'd smiled at her phone last week, a secret curve of her lips when she thought I wasn't looking, the way she'd started mentioning Evan, a new partner at her firm, too often, too casually. "Evan said this. Evan thinks that." I'd brushed it off, told myself I was being insecure. Claire loved me. She'd chosen me. Hadn't she? The next morning, I called in sick, something I hadn't done in a decade. The firm could survive a day without me. I needed answers. Claire had left early, her goodbye kiss perfunctory, her eyes avoiding mine. I sat at our kitchen island, the granite cold under my palms, and opened my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, guilt prickling at the back of my neck. This wasn't me, snooping, doubting, unraveling. But I had to know. I logged into our shared cloud account, the one we used for bills and photos, hoping she hadn't changed the password. She hadn't. My heart sank as I scrolled through her backed-up messages, the ones she hadn't thought to delete. There they were, a thread with E, no name, just an initial. "Miss you already. Can't wait for Thursday. You make me feel alive." Each word was a shard of glass in my chest, cutting deeper than the last. I read until my vision blurred, until my coffee went cold, until I couldn't deny it anymore. Claire was cheating. With Evan. The man she'd laughed with at the firm's gala last month, his hand lingering too long on her arm. I'd noticed it then, a flicker of unease, but she'd waved it off. "You're too sensitive," she'd said, her voice light teasing. "It's just networking." I'd believed her because I wanted to, because the alternative was too unbearable. I closed the laptop and stared at the city skyline through our floor-to-ceiling windows. Chicago stretched out below, a maze of steel and glass, cold and indifferent. My reflection stared back, a man I barely recognized, hollow-eyed, unshaven, a stranger in his own life. I wanted to confront her, to scream, to demand why. But I also wanted to pretend I hadn't seen the texts, to go back to the lie where we were happy, the lie where she was mine. That evening, I waited for her. The penthouse was too quiet, the ticking of the clock a metronome to my dread. When she walked in, her briefcase swinging, her hair slightly mussed, I didn't move from the couch. She froze when she saw me, her smile faltering. "You're home early," she said, her tone too bright, like she was trying to outrun the tension in the air. "Sit down, Claire," I said, my voice calm, deadly calm. She hesitated, then perched on the edge of the armchair, her fingers twisting in her lap. I didn't want to do this, didn't want to tear open the wound, but I had to. "I saw the texts," I said, each word deliberate, like laying out evidence in a trial. "With Evan." Her face went pale, her lips parting, but no sound came out. For a moment, I thought she'd deny it, spin another lie, but then her shoulders slumped, and she buried her face in her hands. "Mark," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean for it to happen." The confession hit like a physical blow, stealing my breath. I wanted to yell, to throw something, to make her feel the pain tearing through me. But I just sat there, numb, as she started to cry. "It was a mistake," she said, her words muffled. "I was lonely. You're always working, always at the firm. Evan, he was there. He listened." I laughed, the bitter, hollow sound. Listened? That's what this is about. I wasn't listening enough. My voice rose, shaking with rage and hurt. "I gave you everything, Claire. Everything." "I know," she sobbed, looking up at me, her eyes red and pleading. "I'm so sorry, Mark. I love you. I didn't want to hurt you." Love. The word felt like a mockery now, a cheap imitation of what I'd thought we had. I stood, pacing the room, my hands clenched into fists. I wanted to believe her, to forgive her, to fix this. But the texts, the secrets, the way she'd looked at me last night, they were all I could see. "How long?" I asked, stopping in front of her. "How long have you been lying to me?" She flinched, as if the question were a physical blow. 3 months, she whispered. "Maybe 4. 4 months. A quarter of a year stolen from me." I thought of the nights I'd stayed late at the firm, trusting her, believing in us. I thought of the mornings we'd woken up together, her smile a lie. I felt sick, like the ground was crumbling beneath me. The next week was a blur of silence and avoidance. Claire moved into the guest room, her things neatly packed, as if she could compartmentalize her betrayal. I threw myself into work, but every contract, every meeting, was haunted by her voice. "You're too sensitive." I started noticing things I hadn't before. How Evan's name came up in firm emails. How Claire's assistant avoided my eyes. How the other partners seemed to know something I didn't. Then on Friday, I found the note, tucked inside a book on her nightstand, a place I'd never have looked if I hadn't been searching for a pen. Her handwriting, hurried and jagged. "Evan, I can't keep doing this. Mark deserves better. But I can't let you go." I stood there, the note trembling in my hand, as the final piece fell into place. She wasn't just cheating, she was in love with him. The realization was a knife, twisting deeper than I thought possible. But it wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the date on the note, yesterday. After her tears, her apologies, her promises to fix things. She was still lying. That night, I waited for her again. When she walked in, I held up the note, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "You're still seeing him," I said. It wasn't a question. Her eyes widened, then filled with tears. "Mark, please." "No." I cut her off, my voice cold. "You don't get to beg. You don't get to cry. You made your choice. I stepped closer, the note crumpling in my fist. Get out. She stared at me, her mouth open, as if she couldn't believe I meant it. Then slowly she nodded, her face crumpling. I never wanted this, she whispered, grabbing her coat and walking to the door. The click of it closing behind her echoed in the empty penthouse, louder than the glass shattering days before. I sank onto the couch, the note still in my hand, and stared at the skyline. The city glittered, indifferent, as my world fell apart. I'd loved her with everything I had, and she'd thrown it away for a man who listened. But the twist, the real gut punch, came later, when I checked my email. A message from Evan, sent an hour ago, forwarded to me by mistake. Claire, I'm done. I can't keep lying to my wife. We're over. She'd lost us both. And somehow, that hurt more than anything else.